I just feel that mindset at every step of the journey is a critical component that often gets missed. There's a lot of strategies. Again, there's a lot of processes and steps out there, and a lot of them work. Some don't, but a lot of them work only if they're executed relentlessly for not just days, months, and years, but for decades. And you can't execute something difficult for decades without the right mindset.
Hi, and welcome to Beyond the Paycheck. I'm Paula Christine. So it's funny how some folks can spend more time planning for a vacation than they can charting their financial course. So in today's episode, our guest is an expert on making financial planning just as exciting and rewarding as planning your dream vacation. So welcome, Chad.
Paul, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, so before we get into the nuts and bolts of planning our financial course, tell me a little bit about yourself and the book that you just wrote.
All right. Well, born and raised in Anchorage, Alaska, so a little ways away from everybody else, but actually grew up in the financial industry and was able to be raised in a household where we spoke openly and often about money and finances. I know a lot of houses, a lot of cultures even, money is taboo and it's something we don't talk about, we don't discuss, which means our wins aren't repeated and our failures are, because people don't get a chance to replicate our wins and they don't get a chance to learn from our mistakes. So I'm very grateful that my parents were open and honest with that information. And Paul, what's allowed me to do is take all that experience, all that time, and apply that to what I'm doing now and coaching people, not just to find better investments, but to really become better investors.
So I'm curious what strategy your parents used, because most kids don't listen to their parents.
Well, you're right. And this is one of the reasons I wrote the book. So I'll get into that in a minute. But there's a phrase I love that says, more is caught than taught. Meaning if what you do is out of alignment, if it's not congruent with what you say, people are more willing to follow what you do. But my parents, they walked their talk. So that helped me see just how impactful those decisions were. My dad taught classes at our church. I saw it not only in my own family, I saw other families around me benefit from the financial advice and from the wisdom that my dad was explaining to us. And I saw, people would stop him in the stores, Paula, and say, hey, Steve, you did such a great job preparing us for retirement. You did such a great job preparing us for planning our future for these different things. So I got to see the payoff all the time growing up. And it really showed me that there was something here. I need to listen. I need to pay attention. And it shifted my mindset. And that's a lot of what this book is about. The title is Forging Financial Freedom, but it's not a bunch of steps and checklists. There's enough of that out there already. But what we need is a new perspective. We need to be willing to look at money differently, to look at investing differently, because if what people were really doing is working, we wouldn't have the financial issues that we have right now. But people don't retire with abundance. They don't retire with confidence and clarity. They retire with a scarcity mindset. They retire with anxiety. They plan for retirement with anxiety and fear. And most people, even retired, live off Social Security as their primary source of income. So even though they are supposed to be at this place of financial freedom, the average individual still lives completely dependent on the government in order to, or maybe not completely dependent, but the average person lives primarily dependent on the government for their financial security. And I just don't believe that's what an abundant life looks like. So my challenge is to people to think differently and act differently. And that's why I wrote this book, more about mindset and perspective than anything else, because Paul, I believe that in order to act right, you have to first think right. And this is a long-term game. It's not get rich quick. So even if you have a great strategy, even if you have the 10 steps or whatever, unless you have the right mindset, you're probably not going to be able to execute those steps and those strategies long enough to see them to fruition unless you're thinking about money and investing properly.
Yeah, I know I talk a lot about mindset because that's the first thing you have to correct. And, we pick up our mindset from our parents. So for you, you were fortunate to have parents that taught others, and through that, you were able to watch and develop a very positive mindset. I did not. Nothing wrong with my parents. It's just that they lived paycheck to paycheck. And I always thought that the world was going to fall out for underneath us. And that's how I went through the rest of my life until I changed my mindset. And then everything just seems to come up so much easier when you change your mindset. Do you agree?
When you look at things differently, the things you see begin to change. If you look in the world and you look for everything wrong, everything that's going to crash the stock market, everything that is out to get you, you will see it. There's a part of your brain called the reticular activating system, the RAS, that helps you filter the information you have. But if you train your RAS to look for all the bad things, all the things happening to you, then that's all you will see, and you will miss the opportunity that surrounds you. And I think even in the midst of what we're going through right now, we're 2 years into the most prolonged market decline since the Great Recession of 2008, 2009. Most people are seeing an obstacle. Our folks are looking at this seeing, okay, the best companies in the world are on sale right now. It's an opportunity. Exactly. Yeah. We're all seeing the same thing, but we're looking at it differently because some people have an abundance mindset. Some people have a scarcity mindset. And with a scarcity mindset, you're only going to see the obstacle. You're going to miss the opportunity completely. And that's just one specific example of that.
Yeah, I talk a lot on this podcast about mindset because I'm just a firm believer that that's where everything starts. Even if you have a ton of money, you can still live in that scarcity mindset. But when you can change that, then your whole world just opens up. And it's amazing what opportunities are out there when you start to just look for those instead of looking for the negativity.
The point you made is super critical because I believe the right mindset is important to build wealth in a sustainable manner. But even if you had wealth, you inherited it, if somebody wrote you a check for $10 million and you don't have the right mindset, you probably won't be able to maintain that wealth. And even if you did, you wouldn't reap the full rewards because of what you just said. If I wrote you a check for $10 million, but you have a scarcity mindset.
Please do.
You're experiencing anxiety. Every time you look at your phone, you're looking, oh, did the stock market go down today? And what are the awful things that happened in Israel while we were sleeping and all those? There is a lot bad in our world. There's a lot going wrong. Absolutely. But if that is your focus, no amount of money will solve that problem for you. Because if you do have wealth, but you still have the wrong mindset, and again, it's going to be real hard to get there with the wrong mindset, but it's possible. I've seen it happen. But even if you do, you will not experience abundance because you're not going to be worrying about how to use your money. You're going to be worrying about losing your money. And I just feel that mindset at every step of the journey is a critical component that often gets missed. There's a lot of strategies. Again, there's a lot of processes and steps out there, and a lot of them work. Some don't, but a lot of them work only if they're executed relentlessly for not just days, months, and years, but for decades. And you can't execute something difficult for decades without the right mindset.
Correct. I mean, look at all the people that win the lotto and they're broke within a few years because...
Yep, exactly.
I could be incorrect about this, and I'm incorrect about a lot of things sometimes, but I think most of the people that win it are purchasing those tickets waiting for something to change their life. And by winning, it's going to change their life, but it's really... They never change the mindset that got them the money, if that makes sense. And then they blow it all because they just don't know what to do with it.
Well, they've never learned how to handle it. So think about a teenager. Giving your teenager a Ferrari is not going to make them a better driver. More horsepower doesn't fix a lack of driving skills. So if you take somebody that doesn't have a lot of money and give them wealth, it will harm them. They will just get into an accident faster and at a higher speed than they did before. So no amount of money fixes poor money management. It just makes a bad problem worse. And in a lot of instances, it's like pouring gasoline on a fire. Now, some of your listeners are like, I would love to have that problem. Write me that check for $10 million and let me see if it's true. I've seen it happen too often. Again, money does not fix poor money management. It only makes a bad problem worse.
I agree with you 100%. So let's get back on topic and let's talk about once you fix your mindset, why it's so important to have a clear financial plan.
Well, I believe they're tied together, Paula, because it's really hard to maintain a right mindset if you don't know where you're going. So a financial plan, a financial roadmap gives you a course to follow that connects where you are today with your long-term future objectives. Because if somebody's planning for 20, 30 years out in the future, that can get really daunting. It can get exhausting. It's hard to see progress if you're just putting one foot in front of the other and you don't know where the destination is. But if you have a clear course, you can celebrate little victories along the way. And even in the middle of a market downturn like we are, you can still celebrate the fact that you're making progress. Your 401k might temporarily look like a 301k. That's okay because you're still executing your path. You are still moving forward towards your long-term goals. It's easier to maintain the right perspective and the right mindset when you have a path in front of you. And a lot of people don't. They don't know where they're going. They don't have clear objectives, and they're not strategically investing for a specific desired future. They're just kind of collecting investments. And a lot of people get off course when they don't have a roadmap to guide them.
So what are some real world examples of some mistakes that people have made? And then what are some wins that you've seen?
Real world examples of mistakes. I'm going to generalize these, but we'll just start with one that we've already kind of brought up. And this is panic in the midst of a down market. A lot of people don't do a good job of separating a temporary decline from a permanent loss. If you lose your leg, it's not coming back. Your foot won't grow back if you have an accident. But when we're investing, the principal value of our accounts, the temporary account balance, it changes all the time. And it's like a roller coaster. But a lot of people during a down market, they experience that temporary decline as a permanent loss. And then they panic, which is really ironic because then what happens when they're investing, the market goes down, out of fear, they sell off. What happens is they turn a temporary decline into a permanent loss by selling. But it wasn't the market that did that to them. It wasn't their investments that did that to them. They made the decision, I'm going to sell my life savings at a discount to somebody else, and now it locks in the loss. So we need to be able to differentiate a temporary decline from a permanent loss. Another thing that people often mistake, and this kind of goes back to the same thing, is focusing on principal and not income. And people don't experience financial freedom from principal. You live off of income. So financial independence is an income issue, not a principal issue. What I mean by that is you could have a fluctuating principal value, the value of all your investments, if you sold them all off on a single day. That's the first thing we look at when we open our account online. We look at a statement. How much are all my investments worth if I sold them? What a lot of people don't understand is how much income their investments will produce over their lifetime. That's the key variable. So, Paula, I like you, but I don't really care how much your investments are worth today. I don't. What I care about is starting the day that you plan to retire, how much income can your investments produce over your lifetime? That is the key variable, and most people aren't even thinking about that or even know how to find out what that looks like.
I love that, Chad. You're right. They don't. They really think about what the statement value is, and then they start to panic. They make bad decisions because they make it emotionally and not logically. And everybody needs to work with a financial advisor or a planner because they help kind of calm you down so that you don't make those mistakes.
Well, and if I may, I'd like to throw out a quick metaphor for you.
Sure.
And I would like your listeners to imagine their wealth as an orchard. Now, right now, we're in the midst of a little bit of a storm. So your trees may not be as valuable as they were 2 years ago. That's okay. As long as you don't cut down your trees and sell them, they will still produce fruit. And what we want to focus on is packing that orchard with as much trees during your career so we can maximize your income production when you retire. But even when you retire, you're going to be living off of the fruit that your trees produce, not the principal. If you plan properly, you should not have to cut down the tree. So even while somebody is retired, they're living off of the income their investments are making. They're not actually selling off their investments. So it's like a farmer owning this orchard. He's planted enough trees in that orchard to be sustained only by the fruit production, not needing to actually chop down the trees and sell them to make ends meet. Another way of thinking about this is if you had an apartment complex, the value of your apartment complex might fluctuate. You're okay with that. You're not planning to sell it. You're living off of the rent it produces. So the temporary value of all those individual units doesn't really matter in the long run. What matters is how much income each of those units are paying. And when you invest in mutual funds through a 401k or a Roth IRA, each one of those shares is like a teeny tiny unit to your apartment complex or a tree in your orchard, depending on how you want to look at it. So when all those little units go on sale, we can pack our orchard or apartment complex with more of those teeny tiny units that will eventually produce income. So that's why I view what we're dealing with today in a down market as a huge opportunity, not an obstacle. But Paula, most opportunities in the moment feel like obstacles. Most long-term opportunities are not easy when you're taking it, whether that's waking up in the morning to go work out, whether that's choosing salad and broccoli over key lime pie or cheesecake. When we're making the right decision for the opportunity in front of us, it's often difficult in the moment, and that's okay. And that's why a financial roadmap helps connect that difficult decision to that long-term payoff.
But I think it all starts with having a plan in a clear direction, because if you don't, you have no idea of where you're going. And without knowing where you're going, you don't know if you're on track or if you're behind. And I think that adds on to anxiety and stress for people.
It absolutely does. Not knowing where you're going and not knowing how to get there. People don't know where they're going and they're not sure if they're headed in the right direction anyway. And that creates tremendous anxiety. Even if you know that there's obstacles ahead of you, even if you know that you're going to have to cross some valleys to keep climbing, but you have a path ahead of you, you can be like, all right, like we got to buckle up. We got to do this. It may not be easy, but you can look at obstacles differently if you know you're on the right path, because life will throw you curveballs. It isn't just the market. It could be your spouse leaving you. It could be you losing your job. It could be your employer cutting your 401k match. There's a whole host of things that can be setbacks. But if you know what the path looks like, even if you get pushed off the path, you know what you need to do to get back on. And not knowing that uncertainty, the ambiguity, that is actually more disruptive to our peace of mind than bad news. So confusion and a lack of answers triggers more anxiety than us getting the answer we don't want or bad news. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I talk to people about money all the time. And even when you tell them, hey, you know what, you're running short or you need to make some changes, and they feel so much better because they at least know, even though it's not maybe the outcome that they wanted to hear, but they know what the outcome is, and then they know what changes they need to make it the outcome that they do want. And that, I think, just takes a huge weight off of everybody's shoulders.
Well, imagine somebody getting in a car with no idea where they're going or how to get there. And then you hit a patch of bad weather. You're already feeling anxious, and now you can't see the road well. It's raining. It's slippery out. It just adds anxiety to anxiety. And you don't even know if you're going the right direction. And the problem with a lot of people is they don't know if they're going the right direction. So the course of action is usually one extreme or the other. They either reverse and go the opposite direction. So they don't know if they were headed the right direction to begin with, but it's uncomfortable, it's difficult. So they just head in a different direction. Or they keep doing the same thing, they just do more of it. So it's like not knowing if you're heading the right direction on the highway and just pushing the pedal down a little bit further. Like we'll just speed up and do more of what we're already doing and hope that changes the result. And it sounds crazy to say it that way, but if people are really honest with their decisions, a lot of times when we don't have clarity, we just double down on what we're already doing, which may not have been working to begin with. And now we're just doing more of it, hoping for a different result.
So true. And I think that doesn't even go with money. It goes in all aspects of life.
It absolutely does. Yes.
How do you talk with your clients about, saving for retirement, but also being able to live a life? Because, I just recently lost my best friend, and, you think like life's too short, no matter how old you are when you pass away. But yet there's saving for all your goals, but yet there's also planning for the trips and doing all those fun things. And how do you talk about your clients about finding that happy medium?
This is a great question, Paula, and it goes right back to your question about the importance of a plan. If you don't know what you need to invest in and how much you need to save every month to get to your long-term goals, you have no idea how to find that balance. But one of the things that we do is reverse engineer from a long-term objective. And actually, Paula, we stopped calling it retirement. We started calling it a work optional lifestyle, because for a lot of our people, they're not wired to just stop working. And honestly, even if you are, that's not a compelling enough goal to simply quit working. You can do that now and the government will kind of take care of you. It's about freedom. It's about financial independence and no longer needing a paycheck and being able to sustain your desired lifestyle without a job. So that's a work optional lifestyle. And what we do is we help people figure out how much money they are going to need for that work optional lifestyle to sustain life on their terms without a paycheck. And then we reverse engineer it. So let's say, I'm just going to make this up. let's say we go through this process with you, Paula, and you're going to need $3 million in order to have a work optional lifestyle. We can reverse engineer that to find out, based on what you've saved so far, how much you need to save every single month to get to where you are, to where you want to be within your desired time frame. Now we've broken up this huge, maybe even overwhelming long-term goal into small bite-sized chunks. It isn't just about 12, 15 years in the future having financial independence. It's about celebrating the inputs, celebrating the victories every single month that you saved whatever the number is. Let's say it's $1,800 a month or $500 a month or $2,000 a month. It doesn't matter. The point being, there's a specific strategic number that you need to save every month to get to where you want to be. If you're able to hit that, you have paid your future self. Now you can pay your current self a little bit. You can have some fun in the moment because your future self is taken care of. You can do that vacation. You can take your family out to the nice dinner. You can do those things without feeling like I might be stealing from the future version of me.
Wow, I just love the way you talk.
Thank you.
You just explain things so well. I think I could sit and listen to you talk all day. So are all these metaphors that you're talking about, are those in the book?
Of course, yes. I mean, they are, but you know what? It's so much broader than finance. And I love that you already pointed this out, Paul. Like, we could be having a conversation about building a business, about relationships, about health. And these are the principles, again, that I believe help people live a more abundant life. And the simple thing that we were just talking about, celebrating the small wins, celebrating the small victories along the way to a bigger long-term goal. That is so vitally important, but we don't do that as human beings. We celebrate the outcome, which we don't have complete control over, and we often ignore the inputs. And it's really hard to maintain a proper mindset when it's always about the goal. And to your question a few minutes ago, if we don't celebrate and reward some of the small milestones along the way, the tendency is to either push everything out there and say, I will have fun when I hit $3 million. I will enjoy life when I hit $3 million. I will have better relationships when I retire. I will focus on my health when I hit these numbers. Everything gets pushed to the future, and it's not a healthy way to live. We have to be able to find that balance. And I think the best way to do that is having a strategic plan.
Well, if you follow anything about abundance and the law of attraction, is you have to live like you already have it. And by having a plan, you can actually visualize that you already have it. And then that doesn't become a job anymore, because you can have those feelings like you're celebrating the wins and you feel really good about where you're going and you're stepping into the future. And that's really what abundance and the law of attraction is that I already have it. It may not be here right this second, but I'm already, you know what I mean? I don't know if that's coming off clear or not, but that's what I understand it to be. And that's the kind of way that I live my life.
So I've never used this metaphor before,
but a new one.
I'm going to try something out new on you. So let's roll with this and see how it goes. So when I was a kid, there was a big purchase that I was wanting to make, and it was a short-term deal, and I didn't have the money. So my dad said, I will buy this, and you're not going to touch it. You're not going to use it until you have paid me in full. And every week I put money towards this item, towards this thing. So it was already a done deal, that it had already been purchased. Even though I wasn't able to enjoy it, I was chipping away at one step every week, getting closer to being able to enjoy that thing that was already purchased. It was already owned by me, even though I wasn't able to enjoy it as part of my everyday life. Does that make sense? I mean, it's kind of what you're saying. It's like the outcome has already been decided. You're just chipping away until that outcome is in your present moment.
Yeah, you have to take action steps to get to that, whatever that goal is that you have. But it's also experiencing the feeling of what that already feels like to have it, even though you know you don't have it. But let's put it this way, like I'll talk about a relationship. I'm single, but I know eventually I will have a partner, and I know what that feeling will be like when I have that partner. So that's kind of the feeling that I hold on to, which will then make me do the steps necessary to find that partner. Are we saying the same thing? Kind of, I guess.
Yeah. I think another way of looking at this too, and this is something I talk about in the book, and I think it's vital in so many areas of our life, is practicing gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
Because when and people say, You have an attitude of gratitude. Yes, it's an attitude, but it's a practice. It's a discipline like any other skill set, like waking up in the morning and running, like practicing your free throws if you're a basketball player. Doesn't matter. It's a practice you must commit to. When you regularly practice gratitude, that can be a journal. I do a gratitude list every morning and I leave it for my family to read. What it does is it not only helps you see other opportunities out there, but it helps you better appreciate what you already have. And I think that's super important. It's not exactly what you're talking about here, but it just reminded me of that. It's something that is very important to have an abundance mindset, because if you're always striving for that next thing, it's like the goalposts are always moving. But if you're regularly practicing gratitude, you will appreciate more of the abundance that's already around you that you might be missing. There's a quote that says, "Fish discover water last." When you are surrounded by something, you ignore it, you discount it, and sometimes you don't even pay attention to it. I think a lot of people are going through life not experiencing the blessings and abundance they already have. And by creating a discipline, that's a dirty word for some people, but creating a practice of gratitude, you will be able to experience the blessing of what is already around you and be able to better see the opportunities in front of you.
Oh, I agree with that 100%. I do the same thing. I write in my gratitude journal every morning at least 3 things that I'm grateful for. And because I've been doing that, I do find, well, it forces me to kind of look at the day before for things that I was grateful about that I might not have even been grateful about. I might not have ever thought about it. And through that, I find a huge amount of opportunities that I would not have seen before. But I'm going to have to cut us. My new producer is going to kick my butt because we're now in a 15 to 20 minute podcast at 30 minutes. So it's been great talking to you, Chad. So if somebody wants to get a hold of you, how would they reach you and how can they find your book?
So the book is available on Amazon, but you can also go through forgingfinancialfreedom.com and you can put your info in there and we'll keep you updated on some of the bonuses and some of the things that we'll be putting out there over the next few months to maximize the impact of that book in your life. And our website is veritasalaska.com. And we were founded here in Alaska. We've got folks all over the US, so we're nationwide, but veritasalaska.com. And of course, we're on the social platforms like Instagram and LinkedIn as well.
And I think you should do your own podcast.
Well, we're working towards it. Conversations like this, it helps me get better at conversing this way. And I just appreciate this conversation with you. I've enjoyed it. This has been fun for me. And it's those little reminders like, yes, I want to be doing this on my own. So thank you for enlightening me.
Oh, no, you're welcome. Thank you for spending time with us today. So if anybody would like to get a hold of me, they can reach me at paula@paulachristine.com, or you can check out my website at paulachristine.com. Thanks, Chad.
My pleasure. It's great being here.